I moved into my new apartment on a Saturday in August, the kind of summer day where the air was so heavy you could almost taste the heat. The humidity made every breath feel like inhaling through wet cotton. 3 weeks later, I found a letter hidden behind my bathroom mirror. It was addressed to the next tenant, and it said, "Don't make the same mistake I did." That was the first one. There were more letters, tucked into corners, drawers, and secret spaces. Clues, warnings, instructions. All written by a woman I had never met. With every letter I found, one thing became terrifyingly clear. The woman who lived here before me was living my exact same life. The only question was, would I be brave enough to listen? Before we dive in, have you ever ignored the warning signs in your own life because change felt too hard? Or realized you were repeating patterns you didn't even notice before? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you love stories about recognizing the paths we're on before it's too late, and the courage it takes to change, please subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, let me tell you about the letters that saved my life. The building was new, all glass and steel. Modern, sleek. The kind of place that looked great in photos, but somehow felt cold when you stood inside it. 23rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows. A skyline view my real estate agent swore was worth the premium. I'd taken the apartment because of the promotion. Senior marketing manager at Crawford and Associates, one of Atlanta's biggest firms. More money, more responsibility, more hours. The kind of job people congratulated you for, even when they could see the exhaustion behind your smile. According to the landlord, the previous tenant had moved out 6 months ago. A very particular tenant, he said. Left the place spotless. You're lucky, some people wreck these apartments. That first week, I unpacked every night after 14-hour workdays. Reed, my boyfriend, helped the next Saturday. Well, helped mostly meant he put together a bookshelf while checking his phone and asking when we could take a break to watch the game. "This place is nice," he said, looking around the living room I decorated with expensive, neutral furniture. "Big upgrade from your old one. Rent, almost double though, but worth it. Shows you're doing well." I nodded, not sure who I was trying to impress, him, my coworkers, or myself. Reed kissed my forehead and left to meet his friends at a bar. I told him I had emails to finish. Truth is, I just didn't want to go. I didn't want to make small talk with people who only spoke in numbers and sports scores. It was easier to stay home, to work, to feel productive. On my third Sunday there, I noticed something small. The bathroom mirror was crooked. Barely a few degrees off, but I saw it. I've always been the kind of person who needs things straight, aligned, perfect. I reached up to fix it, but the mirror was heavier than I expected. When I tilted it, I heard something slide behind it, a soft scraping sound, like paper brushing the wall. Carefully, I pulled the mirror forward. There it was, a plain white envelope, unsealed, tucked neatly behind the glass. On the front, written in small, neat handwriting, "Next tenant." My heart skipped. I pulled it out and unfolded the paper inside. It was a full page, written on simple line notebook paper. And every word felt deliberate. To whoever comes after me. If you're reading this, you're probably like me. The kind of person who notices when things aren't straight. The kind who can't leave well enough alone. The kind who needs everything to be perfect. I lived here for 4 years. When I moved in, I was 31. I'd just gotten a big promotion. I was in a stable relationship. I thought I had it all figured out. I was wrong about almost everything. There are more letters hidden in this apartment. You'll find them when you're ready. Read them, think about them. And please, don't make the same mistake I did. You have a chance, don't waste it. V. I read the letter 3 times, standing there in my bathroom, the August heat pressing against the windows even through the air conditioning. The handwriting was confident, the tone calm, But there was something urgent beneath it. It felt like a warning. I should have thrown it away. Any sane person would have. But I didn't. I folded it carefully, slid it back into the envelope, and placed it in my desk drawer. The next 2 weeks flew by, long nights at the office, meals at my desk, phone calls canceled, plans postponed. Reed said he understood. He always said he understood. Then one Thursday night, 3 weeks after that first letter, I came home around 10 p.m. after a 16-hour day. Exhausted. Eyes burning. Brain still buzzing with tomorrow, to-do list. I went to make tea, something to help me relax, and when I pulled open the drawer, it stuck. Something was blocking it. I tugged harder, and a small folded piece of paper slipped out, landing on the floor. Another letter. I unfolded it. The handwriting was the same. "You're working late, aren't you? I can tell, because if you're reading this, you're probably making tea to help you unwind after another endless day. Let me guess, chamomile. I did the same thing, for 4 years. I told myself I was building something, a career, a future, stability. I thought the sacrifice was worth it. I kept promising myself that once I made it, once I became senior manager, director, VP, then I'd finally slow down. Spoiler, that moment never comes. The goalposts just keep moving. There's always another project, another deadline, another reason to say yes when you should say no. So here's a question I wish someone had asked me. And that's where I'll stop for now. Because what came next changed everything. When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to? Not because it was good for your career. Not because it made sense. Just because it made you happy. If you can't remember, then you're making my mistake. Atlanta has over 300 days of sunshine every year. How many have you actually seen? Or do you just move through them, office to apartment, fluorescent lights to glowing screens? Think about it. V. I stood in the kitchen holding that letter, the tea kettle whistling on the stove. My hands trembled slightly. This stranger, this V, was starting to get under my skin. Who was she to think she knew anything about my life? But then, when was the last time I'd done something just because it made me happy? I couldn't remember. I turned off the kettle, left the tea untouched, and went to bed. But I didn't sleep. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about that letter. And about the woman who had lived here before me. She knew things she shouldn't have known. And that thought wouldn't leave me alone. The next morning, I called in sick to work. The first sick day I'd taken in 2 years. My boss sounded shocked. "Are you sure? We have the presentation this afternoon." "I'm sure," I said. "I'm sorry." And I hung up before he could talk me out of it. That day, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I followed my curiosity. I started searching the apartment. Systematically, methodically. The way I approached everything else in my life. Behind picture frames. Under furniture. Inside closets. It felt like a scavenger hunt in a story I didn't yet understand. And in the back of my bedroom closet, behind neatly stacked shoeboxes sorted by season and color, I found another letter. It was taped to the wall, hidden behind my winter coats. Let me guess what's in this closet. Clothes you haven't worn in months, maybe years. You keep them because they were expensive. Or because they might fit again someday. Or because throwing them out feels wasteful. I'm not talking about the clothes. I'm talking about your relationship. You're with someone who's fine. Stable, responsible. The kind of person everyone approves of. Your friends, your parents, your coworkers. He looks good on paper. But you're not in love with him. Maybe you were once. Or maybe you just convinced yourself you were. Because he checked the right boxes. I stayed in a relationship like that for 3 years. He was kind, reliable, wanted the same future everyone told me I should want. We talked about marriage, houses, plans. But when I imagined growing old with him, I felt nothing. Not fear, not excitement. Just nothing. That's not love. That's convenience. That's settling. And the worst part, I knew it, and I stayed anyway. Do you? V. I sat on the closet floor holding that letter, feeling something crack open inside me. Reed was fine. Stable. Successful. Polite to waiters. The kind of man everyone liked. My mother adored him. My coworkers said we were perfect. But when I tried to imagine spending the rest of my life with him, I felt exactly what the letter described. Nothing. We'd been together for 3 years. He'd asked me to move in twice. Each time, I said not yet. We talked about engagement someday. Always eventually. Never when. I told myself I was being practical. But sitting there on the floor that afternoon, I finally admitted the truth. I wasn't in love with him. Maybe I never had been. I was with him because he made sense, because he fit the life I thought I was supposed to want. Because breaking up would be messy and hard, and would mean admitting I'd wasted 3 years pretending. That night, I called Reed. He came over straight from work, concern on his face. Are you okay? You sounded off on the phone. I took a deep breath. I need to talk to you. We sat on my perfect, expensive couch in my perfect, empty apartment. And I told him the truth. That I cared about him, but I didn't love him the way I should. That I'd known for a while, but hadn't had the courage to say it. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said softly, I know. What? I asked. I knew you weren't happy. I've known for at least a year. I just hoped maybe it would change. Maybe you'd start feeling differently. Or maybe I'd figure out what I was doing wrong. You weren't doing anything wrong, I said. That's the problem. You're perfect. You're everything I'm supposed to want. I just don't want it. Then what do you want? I don't know, I said, but I need to figure it out. He nodded. He didn't argue. Didn't try to convince me. He just stood up, took the few things he kept at my place, and left. Calm, kind, accepting the same way he'd been through our entire relationship. I don't think he was happy either. After he left, I sat alone on that couch and cried. Not because I missed him, but because I'd wasted 3 years of both our lives being too afraid to tell the truth. 2 weeks later, I found the next letter completely by accident. I'd come home early from work, a rare thing for me, and decided to do something I never did. The air conditioning was always on, perfectly controlled, just like everything else in my life. But that day, I wanted to feel real air, even if it was humid, heavy Atlanta summer air. I walked to the window in my bedroom, the one with the best light. It faced south, catching the sun most of the day. I'd placed my desk there, thinking the view might inspire me while I worked. But most days, I barely looked up from my laptop. When I pushed the window open, something creaked beneath my foot. A loose floorboard. It shifted slightly, just enough to catch my attention. I knelt down, pried it open carefully, and there it was. Another letter. This one felt different. It started like this. This window has the best light in the entire apartment. Natural light, warm, real, the kind that makes everything look alive. I used this window for work. I spent 4 years sitting here, staring at screens. While this perfect light went a waste behind me. I was an artist once. Not my mom says I'm good, actually good. I even had my work in a gallery once. But art doesn't pay rent. So I got a marketing degree, a corporate job, and told myself I'd paint on weekends. Then I stopped painting on weekends. Then I stopped painting at all. The letter continued, almost like she knew me. What did you used to do before you decided to be a responsible adult? Before you chose the safe path? Before you convinced yourself that dreams were for other people? Do you even remember? V. I sat there on the floor, the letter trembling in my hands. And the answer came instantly, painfully. I did remember. I used to draw, charcoal, pencil, ink, anything I could find. I'd filled sketchbooks with faces, hands, shadows, light. My art teacher once told me to apply to art school, and I did. I got into SCAD, one of the best. But I didn't go. Because art wasn't practical. Because I needed a real career. Because I was scared of being broke, of failing, of betting everything on talent. So I stopped. And I hadn't picked up a pencil since. That night, I sat by the window and just remembered. The way charcoal felt under my fingers. The satisfaction of creating something that existed only because I made it. And I realized I traded all of that for a salary, a title, and an apartment I barely lived in. The next morning, stuck in traffic on I-85, I had a thought that should have terrified me, but instead, it felt like relief. I was living V's life. Same apartment, same choices, same mistakes. And if I didn't change something, I'd end up exactly where she did. Desperate enough to leave letters behind for a stranger. Hoping someone else would be braver than she'd been. That weekend, I found her final letter, hidden behind the bathroom cabinet, taped behind cleaning supplies I'd never touched. If you found this, it means you've been paying attention. That's good. Hear what I didn't say in the others. I left this apartment 6 months ago. I quit my job. I ended my engagement. I gave up the expensive apartment and moved to the mountains. I paint every day now. I'm terrified half the time, but I'm alive. I'm not telling you to do what I did. I'm telling you to wake up before it's too late. Don't build a life that looks perfect but feels empty. You're living my life right now. The question is, are you going to make the same mistakes? My email's on the back. Reach out or don't. But please, don't wait 4 years like I did. You deserve a life that doesn't just look good. You deserve a life that feels alive. Vanessa Torres. I sat on the bathroom floor, letter in my hands, and I cried. Not polite tears, the kind that come from something deep breaking open inside you. I'd been living on autopilot for so long, I'd forgotten I had a choice. Vanessa had lived this same life, and she'd been brave enough to walk away. That evening, I grabbed my purse and drove straight to the mall. There was an art supply store there. For the first time in 12 years, I bought charcoal, paper, pencils. When I got home, I started to draw. My hands were shaky, out of practice, but it didn't matter. I drew the view from my window. The skyline at sunset. The light that I'd ignored for so long. Weeks passed. Something shifted. I started leaving work on time. Stopped checking emails after hours. Said no to projects that would steal my weekends. My boss was confused. My coworkers were concerned. But I didn't care anymore. I'd spent years trying to be perfect at a job I didn't even like. Just to afford an apartment I was never home to enjoy. Now I was creating again. And for the first time in years, I felt alive. 3 months later, I sent her an email. Dear Vanessa, I found your letters, all of them. You were right about everything. I was living your life, making your mistakes, heading toward the same breaking point. I ended the relationship. I'm drawing again. I'm still at the job, but I'm setting boundaries and looking at other options. I'm trying to figure out what I actually want, instead of what I'm supposed to want. It's terrifying, but it's also the most alive I've felt in years. Thank you for the letters. Thank you for being brave enough to leave them. Thank you for warning me before I wasted as many years. I hope you're doing well. Sienna Blake. She replied the next day. Sienna, I'm so glad you found the letters and that you didn't ignore them. Most people would have. They would have read them, thought, that's not me, and gone right back to the same choices, hopping for different results. The fact that you're drawing again, that you ended a relationship that wasn't right, that you're questioning the path you were on, that takes courage. Life here is good. I paint every day. I sell enough to get by, but most importantly, I'm free. And that turns out to be worth more than I ever imagined. If you ever want to talk, really talk, I'd love to meet the woman brave enough to change course. Vanessa. A month later, I did. I drove 3 hours through Georgia into North Carolina, mountains rising around me, the city fatting into trees and sky. Vanessa met me in a small coffee shop. She was 35, with paint-stained hands and an openness in her face that felt peaceful. It was the absence of the tension I saw in my own reflection every morning. "You look different than I imagined," she said, smiling. "Different how?" "Younger, more awake. When I was living your life, I looked exhausted all the time." "I was," I said, "but I'm trying not to be anymore." We talked for hours, about the job, the apartment, the fear of change, the relief of honesty. "The hardest part," Vanessa said softly, "was admitting I'd wasted so much time. 4 years in that apartment, 3 more in a relationship that lacked love, all those years building a life I didn't even want." "Do you regret it?" I asked. "I regret not leaving sooner," she said. "But I don't regret leaving. Even when it's hard, even when I'm barely making rent, I'd rather struggle toward something real than coast through something empty." Before I left, she showed me her studio, bright, alive, covered in color. Paintings filled the walls, bold, fearless, full of truth. "These are incredible," I said. She smiled. "I spent years making things other people wanted. Now I just make what needs to exist." Driving home that evening, I kept thinking about that. What needs to exist? Not what makes sense. Not what's practical. Just what's true. 6 months after finding Vanessa's first letter, I gave my notice at Crawford and Associates. My boss offered me more money, more flexibility, a better title. I said no to all of it. I didn't have a plan. Didn't have another job lined up. I just knew I couldn't keep building someone else's vision while abandoning my own. I started freelancing, just enough to pay the bills, but not enough to drown me again. The rest of my time, I drew. Took a drawing class at SCAD Atlanta. Built a small portfolio. Got rejected. Kept going anyway. A year later, I moved out of that midtown apartment. I couldn't afford it anymore, and honestly, I didn't want to. I moved to East Atlanta. Smaller space, older building. But it had good light. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was slowly dying inside it. Before I left, I did what Vanessa had done. I wrote a letter and hid it behind the bathroom mirror in the exact same spot. If you're reading this, you're probably like me. The kind who needs everything to be perfect. The kind who's worked hard to build an impressive life. But impressive isn't the same as happy. And perfect isn't the same as real. The woman who lived here before me warned me not to make her mistakes. I didn't listen at first. Then I did. And it changed everything. Maybe your mistake is a job that's draining you. Maybe it's a relationship that looks right but feels wrong. Maybe it's dreams you gave up because they were too hard. Whatever it is, you deserve a life that feels alive, not just survivable. If you need to talk, my email's below. Be brave. You won't regret it. Sienna Blake. Sienna Blake, create@gmail.com. I sealed the envelope, tucked it behind the mirror, and closed the cabinet one last time. 2 years later, I got an email from someone named Carly Lawrence. She'd found my letter. And Vanessa. She was a corporate lawyer, living the same life we once did. Making the same choices. Asking the same questions. She wanted to know if it was really possible to change. If we ever regretted it. If the fear ever went away. I told her the truth. Yes, it's possible. No, I don't regret it. And no, the fear doesn't go away. You just learn to live with it and move anyway. I still draw every day. I'm not rich. I'm not impressive by the old standards. But I'm present. I'm building something that's mine. And every time I sit down to draw, I think about Vanessa Torres, the woman who was brave enough to leave her letters behind, who was brave enough to admit she'd built the wrong life, and even braver to build a new one. 3 women, 1 apartment, each learning, one after another, that it's never too late to start over. And maybe there are others out there. Other apartments, other letters, other people waiting for a sign that it's okay to begin again. Because in the end, we all deserve more than survival. We all deserve to live lives that feel like our own. And maybe, just maybe, we all deserve a letter like hers. Speech balloon, what do you think about Vanessa's letters? Were they overstepping, or an act of courage that changed lives? If this story touched your heart, leave a comment below, hit the like button, and subscribe for more meaningful stories every day. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story that might just change yours.